Okay, guys, it's Dr. Ryan, and today we are here with one of my patients, Michael. Michael's been a patient of the clinic for several months now, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about his experience with SummaUp and myself. So, Michael, why don't you take this opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live,
Mhm,
what you do, some of your hobbies, family life.
mhm. Sure. Well, I'm Michael. I live in Boston and moved to Boston for grad school some years ago, but also as part of that journey to start my own business. I'd already spent, a good deal of my career on the road, traveling quite a lot for large companies, and wanted to just shift my attention to something new, give my go at starting a business from scratch, which is also a very interesting journey in itself, and a lot of stress and a lot of time, and juggling that with just other aspects of your life. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but it's been an interesting kind of ride over the last, say, 5 years. And here in Boston, growing the business, hiring more people into the business, and on personal time, trying to fit in some, leisurely activities with me and my partner, friends. We love to travel, but these days the travel has become a bit more limited. And also me and others around me, aging, and then the pandemic kind of throwing a wrench in things. So life's been interesting over the last several years in more ways than one. But, excited to share a little bit about how, this program has really shifted things in a very positive direction.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to some of those issues you might have been having. So why don't we just go ahead and talk about them?
Mhm,
So why don't you describe your experience prior to joining the clinic? What were some of the problems that you were trying to solve specifically in terms of your physique and overall
mhm.
health?
Yeah. Well, physique, overall health, it's something that's been always on my mind. I'd like to believe that, since an early age, college years, I've been pretty aware and conscious of, healthy eating, healthy lifestyle. Obviously, not always making best choices, but at least being aware of what's a good choice and a bad choice. And always being interested in food, quality food, and learning about nutrition from college years, getting into weight training and exercise from varying degrees over the years. So all of that has been very familiar, but I think maybe because of that and having always, tried to be really fit, I've always struggled with it. And I feel like my body has never been in that place where I was truly happy with it. Maybe I've been very lean, but maybe also with very little muscle mass, or gaining some muscle, but also a whole lot of fat to go along with it. So I think what I would describe as my genetics giving me that disposition of really loving to put on the fats no matter what I'm doing. So that's been kind of an issue I've always struggled with. I think that now, as I've realized, oh, I'm also getting older now, this is only going to get more difficult. So what is the path of actually achieving something that I really like?
Yeah, and your situation is very, very common. A lot of us are confused with the information out there. We're inundated constantly with lots of differing opinions on what the best diet, training regimen, supplement regimen is, and it's I can totally understand how you feel. And that's what
Mhm.
we all want. We want healthy biomarkers. We want a nice, aesthetically pleasing physique, and yeah, I can totally understand your frustration in regards to that.
Yeah.
How did your frustration in this regard affect you in a negative way, in terms of your career and your family? It sounds like you're pushing yourself to the limit.
Mhm.
You're growing your business. How
Yeah.
did these factors affect that?
Yeah, well, think about more recently, say in the last 5 years, it's all a combination of things, coming out of the pandemic, trying to start a business. I'm getting older. People around me are getting older, but I still want to do a lot of things, and needing the energy to do so is very important. And I think that aging, becoming more aware of that, so you realize, okay, what do the next 10 to 20 years look like? What do I want to achieve in this time? And how can I do that? It just becomes more prominent maybe than I would have thought about in my 20s. So I think this has been an interesting time of reflection of, okay, now I really have to figure this out or decide, what that's going to look like. I think that I'm still in that phase of life where I do enjoy being out there. I like social activities in the summer. definitely, like to go to the beach, like to have a lot of physical activities going on, recreation, being out. So it's and that also still is on my mind in terms of aesthetics. I want to have, not feel terrible about myself if I'm taking off my shirt at the beach. Something simple as that. That is still important to me at this stage of life. So all these kind of circling things going to my mind all at once.
And again, another really common situation I see with patients that come into the clinic. It's like, they want the energy levels and the dynamism that they had in their 20s because they're reaching their peak in their 30s and 40s in terms of their business, but they're noticing for some reason these energy levels are receding, right? And they're getting more frustrated with the efforts they're putting in the gym. So very, very common. Was there like an inciting event that you felt that, because you probably were dealing with this for several years, was there an event of some sort that made you say, okay, time to do something about this?
Yeah, there was definitely one particular event, kind of probably a few other things around it. I had some shoulder pain. This was, probably early mid last year, and went to a doctor about an orthopedist and had an MRI done. And it did show up, there was a slight tear to rotator cuff, but what it also showed a number of things I wasn't expecting. And on the list is the word degeneration. And when you see that word, you're like, okay, that's a really nice way of just saying you're wear and tear and you're getting old and all this stuff. So when you see that and know that, oh gosh, maybe there's not a whole lot I can do about that, but maybe there are things I can do to slow this down and realize that it's not just about, taking care of moisturizer in your face, but it's also what's going on inside. So it's kind of a wake up call in that moment, I would say. And all of that happening at the same time, what I mentioned before of, all these thoughts of, still have the drive, the desire to be very active and be out there, but do I have really the stamina for it? So is this healthy? Am I doing that in a healthy way? And with the business, noticing that my energy is depleting, and I realize when I'm getting really stressed out. And if I'm stressed out as a leader in my business, that's not ideal. I would never recommend that for a leader of a business to get in that situation, because then you're not being present, you're not there for your team. So that was the combination of things going on all at once last year.
Yeah, the entrepreneurial journey is like a roller coaster, and you need to be the stalwart. You need to be the force against the waves, right? And if you can't control yourself internally, that can be a big issue, right? So okay, so you made the decision. You had this shoulder injury. Like, all right, I need to go ahead and do something. How did you find out about the clinic and myself, and what eventually made you say yes? Because listen, I realized there are a lot of options out there. I'm very thankful you decided to work with me. But what made you say, okay, I'm going to take a chance on this guy?
Sure. Yeah. I think it was a Facebook ad that I ran across, and maybe there were a couple ads there. And the topic then kind of just came about of paying attention to the health and different attributes to your health and nutrition and exercise and just how it all comes together. And, that kind of very high level, high touch, comprehensive approach is something I realized I probably hadn't really tried before. And also recognizing that, hey, I've always wanted not only the health and the stamina for work-wise and such, physique-wise, aesthetics. This is probably my last chance. If I'm in my mid-40s here, and if this is, something that I really want to be serious about, this is probably that window of opportunity. So that was my thought process in it, and doing a bit of my own research and kind of the medical research. And I appreciated very much that this was a program that was doctor-led. It was based on scientific research. It's based on a lot of combination of research that I could trust, and something that wasn't just a kind of a fad or just some other model that might work for some people, but not necessarily for me.
I mean, I think I think it's wonderful you recognize it. Listen, credentials aren't everything, but it is nice to know that you're working with someone who's adequately trained and has training in functional medicine or board certified by one of the I am by the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, or many of the larger functional medicine societies. So yeah,
Hmm.
very, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we transition over to your experience after joining the clinic? And we're going to really initially focus on your physique and overall health. But before we do that, I just want to take a second to brag on your progress. So when you joined me, one thing that we were a little concerned about was your hemoglobin A1C, and that was obviously a marker of diabetes. And when you initially joined, we were a little concerned that you were heading towards becoming diabetic, right? You were almost at the cusp of becoming pre-diabetic, right, at 5.6. And then after we implemented diet, exercise, supplements, and medications, we're able to turn this around completely. And now your hemoglobin A1C is much better, right, at 5.1. Really, really good. Far away from you ever having to worry about developing diabetes. The other thing that I thought was just remarkable was looking at your lipid panel, which when you started with us, it is what it is. You're under a lot of stress. You had to make certain dietary choices, but this was really not a lipid panel conducive with optimal cardiovascular health. Yeah, your total
Hmm.
cholesterol is 223, your triglycerides are high, your apolipoprotein B was quite high as well, along through LDL. But after you made the commitment to improve your health, your lipid panel just improved dramatically. Your total cholesterol is just remarkable how much it's dropped. It went from 223 to 179, just a phenomenal, almost 40 point drop. Your triglycerides went from 185 to 81, more than 100 points. Unbelievable.
Mm.
And then your LDL dropped from 140 to 101, almost 40 points. Just incredible without the use of statins, diet,
Yeah.
supplements, and exercise are the key driving factors. And then, it's great to see your lab values improve, but what was really awesome was seeing your physique improve. You've lost almost 20 pounds, and I would say a great deal of it being adipose tissue, which is really remarkable. And it's evident in your physique. And that was you before. And here you are after, much
Hmm.
leaner. Your shoulders, your delts are popping out. You have much more vascularity in your arms, and your abs are starting to come out, and we're not even done. And so, really, really amazing change.
Yeah.
So, outside of those, those markers, your physique, your biomarkers, what are some of the other things that you noticed in terms of your overall health that improved?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's probably a combination of the physical health that contributes to just a bit of greater sense of well-being and energy and focus and kind of mental clarity as well. But I suppose the kind of psychological component is when you start seeing results and you see that your commitment is actually doing something, you just kind of can't help but get more motivated and feel a bit better about the process and that this is something that is worthwhile in more ways than one. And that's definitely been my experience here. If I think back of, the decades of, always having this on my mind of, how my body responds to food and exercise and choices and everything around, it's always been kind of a mixed bag of experiences and a lot of roller coaster and fluctuation. And, this is the first time where, gosh, the plan, it takes commitment for sure. It's done its work. But when you start to see those results even really early on, that really keeps you motivated.
Very cool. And how did some of those results manifest themselves in terms of your business, as well as in terms of your relationships, both professional and personal?
Hmm. Yeah, I do kind of notice and catch myself even at the end of a long day. And, it's after 5 p.m. right now, my day is nowhere near done. So these are still long days, but I'll take my breaks, but I'm able to kind of take my moments to realize, oh, I'm still able to be present for people, my team members, but also at home and family, and acknowledging that even as an entrepreneur, you're building a business, but you also want to be present for your loved ones around you and being available and being able to do that. It's a ton to juggle. It's not easy, but when your own health, when you are taking care of yourself, you're able to do that for others much more easily and more consistently. So I do kind of catch those moments where I feel like, oh wow, this is really good. I realize this, and not sure that was always the case beforehand. no one really wants to be around a stressed out person anyway. And then you don't even know what you're missing as well when you're very distracted. So that's really changed a lot for me.
Yeah, I think as being a business owner or being someone in charge of a team, you often have to put other people's needs ahead of yours.
Mhm.
Primarily the business, of course, your employees and your clients, of course, and a lot of us neglect to take care of ourselves. But that's a big fallacy, because if you don't really focus on yourself, you can't give the best version of yourself to
Yeah.
others, and that will definitely be indicative in your work.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So outside of the aesthetic changes, the ability to perhaps communicate better with your team, provide that strong dynamic individual that's going to be able to weather any of the vagaries of the market of
Mhm.
your clients. Were there any other benefits that came from working with the clinic?
Oh gosh, I mean, I mean, all for all those reasons you just mentioned are really important reasons. I think those are the important ones, and just personal life, and wanting to be a bit more confident that you are going to have more healthy years. I guess kind of a story here. This is also kind of in the context of my partner's mom not doing very well, and we other family members and parents and stories from friends as well. And so we're witnessing the path of aging, and realizing, well, there are still some things that we can do about our own choices and our own lifestyles that hopefully will have some influence on what that agent experience will be like for ourselves, and how we're around for our partner, for our family members and our friends. So that's kind of been on mind this year because of those kind of situations with aging parents.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation, almost surreal. Like we're moving
Mhm.
away from our 30s or our 20s, where we're like, hey, our parents are going to be here forever, into our 40s,
Mhm.
50s, and 60s, where you're like, oh my goodness, their parents' impending
Mhm.
mortality is becoming more of an issue. And
Yeah.
the reality that is, if you really take a proactive approach to your health and try to focus on improving those biomarkers, reducing
Mhm.
glycation, oxidation, methylation, inflammation, and using a guided approach, you can avoid some of the scenarios that you're probably seeing, heart attacks, strokes,
Mhm.
diabetes, kidney issues, all of those things. So it's
Yeah.
wonderful that you recognize it and you're making the right steps to preventing it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what would you tell someone who is watching this now and is uncertain about joining the clinic? What would you tell that person?
Mm. Obviously, everything has to be a very personal choice, and kind of have to consider kind of the timing, and this kind of program definitely takes some commitment, exercise wise and diet wise, and also being open to the conversation with you, Dr. Ryan, and your team. But I would say that if you are kind of open with learning and kind of going along that journey, and even learning more about yourself through that process, the program you've put together is amazing. And I'd imagine it's also very adaptable for different types of people. I'm definitely not like everyone else, and I know you have a diverse set of clients. So I think that's also what makes this interesting choice to consider, because it's not just that kind of one fad that probably works with one body type or one set of genetics or kind of one thing. This is kind of rooted into something that's much more adaptable for people. So I think that's kind of what went into my consideration in choosing this program over some of those other Facebook ads I saw coming across. And this one really stood out.
I hesitate to use the term cookie cutter because
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very trite and overused in the
Mm, yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
But it's true, right? You want a physician or a team that's going to give you a personalized approach and really try to understand each and every patient's unique situation, so we can offer them the care they need. And that's kind of how we approach it here.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, I really want to thank you for talking a little bit about your experience with the clinic, and really appreciate you describing how you felt before and after. So thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks. Pleasure to talk about it.